We have Jesse Lentchner, who is the BTIG's CEO for the Asia Pac. Good to have you on the program, Jesse. So is risk back on?
It would seem that way. I would say that across Asia, mostly people have gotten out of the markets over the last 2 months. If you look at most of the surveys of investor sentiment, they're at their lows. The markets, of course, have come off or at the bottom of their ranges. There hasn't been much movement in rates, etc., and cash levels are pretty high for most funds. So it feels like people are out of the market and they want to get back in before the summer starts.
Yeah, but is the enthusiasm warranted? Because we were talking about some of the economic numbers we got out of the U.S., housing so flat on its back, the Case-Shiller index showing that housing prices are at their lowest in 8 years. I mean, where's this enthusiasm coming from?
Well, I think you bring up a good point. I think we might have a good June, but I'm not sure if we're going to have a good July and August after that. The best times to buy a market generally are when a tightening cycle is ending or when people are revising up their earnings estimates. And I don't think that we have either of those right now. While people think that there might be some tightening cycles ending in Asia, I'm not so optimistic. I think there was too much printing of money during the course of the last 2 years. I think central banks in Asia will continue to have to tighten. If you look at the U.S. and most of the developed economies, most of the earnings have been coming down, not up, especially over the last few weeks, in sympathy with the GDP numbers, export numbers, etc., which have been on the weak side of expectations.
And what about what's taking place in Europe? I mean, isn't this essentially a restructuring of Greece's debt? Is this something to celebrate?
When it comes to Europe, I feel like we're sort of in the back of the bus just going along for a ride until the politicians decide what they want to do with it. It's very hard to make a really well-informed decision on what to do. I do think that the euro is not particularly overvalued. Again, the stocks there are probably not particularly overvalued. In terms of the long-term stability, I'm less pessimistic than some. I do think that some sort of Brady bond-like restructuring will have to take place, but when there will be the political will to do that and what it means to earnings for the banks and what it means for liquidity in general, I just don't think we know yet.
Okay, and what about to the end of the stimulus cycle in the U.S.? QE2 is coming to an end, but still shares are buoyant, well, in the last trading session at least.
Well, there's been a belief that the economy would continue to expand past that liquidity. And there's also been persistent rumors that the Fed will continue in a QE3. Now, the Fed in the U.S. is extremely independent, but politics always plays some part. And the perception of the Fed of course, is very important. I think it will be very difficult, if not impossible, for them to continue tightening. I think that the next thing that you will see them do in a phased approach is first they will announce in some way that there will not be a QE3.
Yeah.
I think after that, in the next 3 to 4 months, you will see them begin to discuss not reinvesting the coupon payments and dividends from their existing investments. And I think after that, and I think this is still 6 to 9 months away, you'll see them start to say that they are not going to reinvest the maturities.
Okay.
So I think that they'll have that phased approach.
Okay, one more quick question for you, Jesse. If June's going to be a pretty good month for stocks, so
yes.
Where should you be putting your cash?
Well, I think Hong Kong obviously is a great place right now. They're still benefiting from the liquidity that is sloshing around the markets. The market is again at the bottom of its range, and the domestic economy here, such as it is doing very well. The Chinese exports are slowing, but people still want to put money in the market there. Korea, you were also talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You've seen great earnings growth in Korea. They're moving up the value chain. They have a lot less of an inflation problem compared to some of the other markets in Asia, and so I think they can do very well.
That's a good point. Okay, Jesse, thanks for dropping by. Enjoy the rest of your week. That's Jesse Lentchner, CEO of BTIG Asia Pacific. Now.